Hello, I'm here with Stacy Long of Grant Township, Indiana County, Pennsylvania. She's a supervisor there, and their township has passed a first-in-the-nation law that legalizes direct action to stop frack wastewater injection wells within the township. Welcome, Stacy.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So this is historic actions that you're involved with, and could you tell us a little bit about what happened, about the background? I know that obviously you were being threatened by the fracking industry in your town there in Pennsylvania.
Yes. Injection wells, though, are kind of new to Pennsylvania, I don't mind saying. Originally it was thought that, Pennsylvania didn't have the geological structures, miles underground to house fracking wastewater like Ohio has and like Texas has and like Oklahoma has. But as soon as Ohio and West Virginia, started having, and Oklahoma started having all those earthquakes, then all of a sudden Pennsylvania's geology is starting to look a little more ripe, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, yes. And being that, our neighbors, Ohio, are just, becoming Swiss cheese with these things. And, the EPA hasn't updated any of the practices since, 1989. There was a government accountability thing about them 2 summers ago saying, look, you people have to figure this out. The fracking industry has been in a boom since 2012, and you're still using these practices from 1989. It's become this hall pass that's gone out of control. And, we had decided as a community that we weren't going to sit around and wait to get poisoned. We were going to try and do something up front.
Yes. So once you were threatened, then you obviously tried to organize and figure out how to handle this threat. So what was the first thing you did?
Well, the first thing that we did was you'd have to meet my mother, Judy Wanchisen. She's also a resident of Grant Township, and this whole mess fell on her lap. And there was a township supervisor who was there, and he's older, and his main concern for the township is maintaining our 52 miles of roads, which is a big job. Anyway, what had happened was in Pennsylvania, the EPA is in charge of the underground injection well program. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm listening. I've heard people refer to the Pennsylvania EPA as the what is it? Permits.
Everything. Yeah, everything permitted anyway. Everything permitted agency. You can just talk to them. Yeah, you can present them with all kinds of things. Their scientists in geology are always way better than yours.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, but anyway, this township supervisor gave the notice of the public hearing that the EPA was going to have in Grant Township to my mother, and that's what started all of this. And that would have been the summer of 2013, August of 2013. Anyway, long story short, my mother did some quick Googling because she'd never heard of an injection well. I mean, Grant Township is dotted with natural gas wells. There are more gas wells in Grant Township than there are households. Huh. So she knew what a natural gas well was, but she didn't know what an injection well was. Well, she found what little she did find that wasn't on the EPA site was horrifying. These things are self-regulated. They're the least regulated of all the different injection wells, and there are 5 of those, 5 different kinds. Loopholes and all kinds of wonderful emissions that, the gas industry gets to enjoy while hauling this incredibly secret, toxic waste.
Yeah.
And then they squirt it miles and miles underground where it's supposed to stay forever. embedded in prehistoric rock. And it's, never going to resurface ever again, never. And it's never going to get in your aquifer, and it's never going to contaminate the groundwater, and it's never going to ruin your spring.
Right.
And our concern in Grant Township initially at that point was nobody in Grant Township has access to public water. And that's something that in western Pennsylvania is really common. Everybody has a private spring or a well, We don't have a water treatment plant, We don't, if you have a dry summer and a crappy spring, you can run out of water for an afternoon or a day or a week. Or if your pump explodes, you don't have water. You have to get that plumber in, and you have to get a new pump.
Right.
This is a real situation. That's reality for rural living in western Pennsylvania. So, of course, we thought once the EPA learned that, there's nobody here who has public water, and they see, the twisty, turning roads and the hilly path, and, it's right next to a 100-year-old church, they're never going to put this thing there. Never. Oh, yeah. They would like to very much, though.
Yeah. So then you turned for some help, right? You asked for some expert help on this.
Yes. My mother then continued in her quest to find anybody that would be willing to help, and the president of the Indiana chapter of the League of Women Voters gave her the number of SelfGov. She threw SelfGov at my mom, and my mom called up and got Chad Nicholson. And let's see, when was that? That would have been March of 2014 that Chad came to Grant Township and spoke at one of the township meetings and encouraged us to organize a community group that,
Yes, and Chad's from the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
He is a community organizer at the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund. That's correct.
Yes. And so he presented that, and then you all obviously decided to go along with the strategy that he recommended.
Well, initially what happened is that we organized a community group within Grant Township called the East Run Hellbenders Society.
Uh-huh.
And the East Run Hellbenders Society, in addition to Chad, helped prepare documents and a presentation for our board of township supervisors at the time. And the board was very receptive to the idea of drafting that initial ordinance banning injection wells. And SelfGov worked with them in another capacity because, of course, that was necessary for that part of the process. But the community group was really active in working with SelfGov to make sure that, the right information was being understood and what things meant and, what it was we were going to try to accomplish with this whole business. And and that partnership is ongoing,
Right. So you and the other supervisors.
Well, I wasn't a supervisor
you
then.
weren't at that time, but the community and the supervisors were totally supportive of this, pretty much. And
yes, and Chad told us how rare that was. Yeah,
so what you ended up with was a community bill of rights ordinance in 2014, and so what does that ordinance do? What does it say?
Well, it stated that the residents of Grant Township had a right to clean air, pure water, have a right to have our scenic rural way of life preserved, to have our ecosystems evolve and flourish naturally, and of course it also prohibited the permanent storage of fracking wastewater within the boundaries of the township.
Good.
And yes, and that meeting occurred when our township supervisor board voted on that was in June of 2014. the gas company who wants to have the injection well is called Pennsylvania General Energy. And the owner of that company, along with 3 lawyers, I believe, was present at that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And their lawyers did threaten the room full of, our Grant Township citizens and our Board of Supervisors with a lawsuit if they passed it, if they decided to pass the ordinance. But they passed it anyway. Yep, it was quite a cowboy show, something like I've never seen before. All these hands being raised for, people in support of the ordinance, and just, these men in suits standing there looking really uncomfortable, but, saying things like, we just want to be your good neighbor, and,
and poison you.
Yeah, I know. When I think of good neighbors, I think of, like, progressive dinners. Can I borrow a cup of sugar? I'm out of bourbon. I never heard of anyone like, oh, by the way, we're going to come in and put in an industrial toxic waste dump. Is that okay by you?
Yeah.
That's not very neighborly.
So then
and threatening to sue us. Oh, yeah.
And then they did sue you, right?
They did.
Yeah.
They did. In June, the ordinance passed in June, and by August, they filed papers in federal court suing Grant Township. Yeah. They were saying...
and so that lawsuit, how did that go?
Well, it's still going.
It's still going, okay.
It's still going. Like I said, the judge did rule. I think TGE sued the township for 18 different counts, and she has only ruled on 9 of them.
Uh-huh.
And from what I understand, there are almost, I can't remember if it's 200 or 300, but it's either 200 or 300 legal briefs have been filed by both sets of attorneys that are on file for this case. Yes. And so she still has to rule on the remaining 8 or 9 counts.
Well, has she already ruled to overrule the ban on the injection well?
Yes, she did, but she said that we couldn't, as a second-class township, Grant Township did not have the right to pass such an ordinance.
Okay, and then you had a strategy for dealing with that too, right?
Yes. So the new dilemma is now. At the time, we had the community group got together, and we had petitions, and we had 7 people who live in Grant Township ready to be what's called members of a government study commission. And we all ran, and we won. We won the opportunity to study the system of government in Grant Township, and that would have been in May of 2015.
Yeah.
Because what we were going to do is we were going to present to the citizens of Grant Township whether or not to adopt a home rule charter and become a home rule municipality and not be a second-class township anymore.
Yeah, so that's supposed to give you certain rights and privileges, right?
Well, it can be whatever it is that's right for that community. It's something the state of Pennsylvania allows any township, city, borough to explore, and it's a more democratic system of government. Mm-hmm. The second-class township code, of which Grant Township had used before, is pretty much the system of government you get. It's not the one you deserve, it's just the one you are assigned to. And we, with Zelda's help, the thing we kept running into is, how is this allowed to happen? And it was allowed to happen because as a second-class township, we're at the very bottom of the pile. We were under everyone's thumb. We didn't have a say in anything. Nothing. We couldn't have said boo. It was literally, step aside. This is going to happen. You don't get a say.
Yeah.
So
you're not like a second-class township anymore.
No, we are now a home rule municipality, and the same provisions of that original ordinance that the judge struck down in October have been written into our home rule charter,
right?
Which my community, Grant Township, did vote in this past November, 3 weeks after the judge said you weren't allowed to do this.
Right.
So,
yeah.
If that, yes.
Yeah. So your charter is like a little constitution. It's
yes.
At the level of law, of constitutional law, and so that charter still stands, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
But then to protect that charter, then you've done something else, I understand, which is really pretty interesting. Can you go on with the story there?
Well, yes. See, what is prohibited in Grant Township under Section 3 of our Home Rule Charter is obviously the injection well. And every citizen in Grant Township, by having the charter be his or her law, is given the right to enforce that charter. But as we know in this litigious, I can never say that right, this sue-happy society we live in, it was discussed and we all agreed that perhaps an ordinance that would give protections to the citizens of Grant Township willing to enforce the rights of the charter, and which are, the 2 or 3 things prohibited in Grant Township. It adds a level of protection. So if I stand in the road on like a horrible day that, everything we've done has failed and the trucks are going to come with the fracking wastewater.
Right.
I stand in the road and, with others, and I tell the trucks, what you're doing is illegal, you have to turn around and go away. And the trucks say no, and, someone calls the police and wants to have me carted off. I have this ordinance saying that I'm not to be arrested for enforcing what I'm sworn to protect, which is this township from fracking wastewater.
Right. Which is a really interesting turn on direct action,
Yes, because Grant Township is teeny tiny. We don't have a police force. There's no police force here. No. There's the neighboring townships, which are much bigger and wealthier than us, even they don't have, a police force. They rent, they all go in and they take slices and they have a policeman who comes, 1 or 2 days a week for certain numbers of hours.
Right.
We don't have that. Uh-huh. But what we do have, and it would be, standing in front of a truck is a really, that's an unpleasant thing to think about, and that is not for everyone.
Right.
To consider, not at all. Because all of this is completely terrible and horrifying. But you have to have a plan. You have to be ready. And that was another reason for we want to be ready. We want to be ready if the courts fail us. We want to be ready if the EPA continues to fail us. We want to be ready if the DEP fails us. We just want to be ready.
So you've done everything. You have encoded your law in a charter, and that gives you certain kind of status. I think it certainly sets the logic for doing direct action. If all else fails, then you stand in the road. And it just blows me away to think about it. And direct action has been associated with what's called civil disobedience for most of my life. I've only heard that. And here's an instance where what you're doing is not civil disobedience. isn't direct action for civil disobedience purposes. It's direct action to enforce your local laws.
That is exactly right.
And your local laws are what you want. You're not, of course there's a prohibition on injection wells, but what you're stating in your law is that you want clean air and clean water and
yeah. And we don't expect to get rich from it either. We're not doing this for money or glamour, certainly not. Certainly not fame. We're not even doing it to be infamous. We just want, you talk to people all over Pennsylvania and other states, and their lives have been turned upside down, and they're powerless. And I mean, you work all day, and you have your job and your family, and you come home, and you just want your own little haven, your own little place where everything is the way you want it, and you feel safe there, and you feel right there, and you feel okay there, and you feel like the taxes you pay there are worth it, or whatever. Right. And then to know that all of that can go away just because a corporation wants to save, $500,000 or $2 million or whatever, because it's cheaper to get rid of their garbage this way. And there isn't anything that can be done for you about it. Nothing. And it doesn't matter that it's a terrible idea and it's a terrible location, and there are faults. Supposedly there's a fault in Grant Township, not far from the site, and there's a school, a mile and a half away. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. And we have a salamander who lives in our creek that, it's slated to go on the endangered species list in 2018.
Uh-huh.
None of that matters either.
No, it really doesn't. No. They just they're in such a hurry to grow their economy.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's all they see, and that corporations are designed that way. They can't really behave in any other way than to continue to expand and continue to grow and to
continue to make money for the stockholders and the owners.
Everything is infinite. All the encroachments they're making, all the externalities that they're providing to the communities for the costs to communities, they're infinite in their eyes, and so they just keep growing and growing and growing, because that model of industrialism is one of continued growth, and it implies that they're trying to do something that is unbounded and infinite in a finite universe.
Yes, but I need my money right now, Tom.
I am a representative from the National Community Rights Network, and we are a network right now of 6 states. We represent local community organizations such as yours, and help support your grassroots organizing any way that we really can with the resources that we have. And,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's just so touching to hear your story, but also your community, you and your community and your mother are great inspirations to us all, because
we are.
Many of us, yes, because many of us have enacted our own local bills of rights, and they're starting to be preempted by state governments and the big oil and gas companies and mining. The mining association here in Colorado overturned local bans or countywide bans of 5 counties up in the San Juan Mountains, bans on this open pit heap leach gold mining, and we've had all sorts of situations where people have wanted to pass local laws to raise the minimum wage, and those are preempted here by the state. And
even that is preempted in your state.
My goodness. Plastic bag bans are preempted by our state.
What?
And you can't have rent control because of state preemption. If you want to have a locally owned community broadband system, you have to go through hell, to do it. It's practically preempted. There's a lot of things here. Factory farming, you can't preempt factory farming. Basically, are not supposed to be able to outlaw anything that the state permits here. So,
and the state is guarding its commerce, isn't it?
Yes, and the principle of home rule here, we have home rule cities that have been preempted, and I'm not trying to give you bad news. I just want to say that it's very inspiring, to hear your story and to know that you've done everything that you can right now to protect yourself. And
we have. Yeah, we really have.
Yeah, and that's the direction that I think we're all going to have to take. I think that we're going to have to band together. Our communities need to grow in strength and unity to such an extent that we can actually stand up and enforce our laws ourselves, because there are laws. I mean, the state can't really overrule the local laws, even within the context of a home rule community. I mean, they have case laws made, rulings made by the, lawyer, the judge, that works for the state, rulings that say that the state has the supreme authority on all these matters, but that's really illegitimate. If you look and see what it says in the state constitutions, home rule communities have the right to local self-government. And
we do.
And so that argument, though, has not been made in court. It's not something the courts are listening to. They're just talking about who has the authority to ban or regulate these industries. And so,
yes, my township was sued precisely for those sorts of things.
Right. One of the things that we've done here in Colorado is that we have a campaign committee, which is in other states called a political action committee, and we are running an initiative to get enough signatures to put an amendment on the state ballot for this 2016 election to amend our state constitution to give local communities the right to self-government and to give them the right to state their own values for inalienable rights and to protect those rights through prohibitions on things which would violate those rights. And so that is something that we're going to do to clarify our right and to more specifically guide the enactment of the practice of self-government in towns and cities all around Colorado. So
that is incredible.
Yeah, that's something that we're doing, and Oregon is working on this, and New Hampshire, and so that could be something that's coming up next in Pennsylvania, for all we know, and that would be something that would really be supportive to you.
Oh,
yes, in Grant Township.
It would.
Yeah,
it would. Let me ask you: Have you started the process? Are you talking to people who, maybe have no inkling or understanding of, how the state government of Colorado works, and are people receptive to what you're telling them, what you want to propose?
Well, this is the second time we've done the circulating, and we did it in 2014, and now we're doing it again. And each time it grows, it builds, and we have a campaign committee. We have a group of people who are very committed to this, and we go out petitioning regularly. We've petitioned really large events, and some of us have time during the day. We can go and petition, out in front of a library or some public place. But we have to get 150,000 signatures. So.
That's what I mean. How is that go? Are people excited? Are people like, yeah, give me that, I want to sign up?
Oh yeah, the younger people are very interested, and particularly people who are interested in politics, who are involved in some of these campaigns, the youth political campaigns, and so the young people are starting to realize that the way government is going is really not working in their best interest.
No, it's democracy is non-existent.
Pretty much. And so what we're trying to do is reestablish, or it has been practiced throughout time in communities throughout this continent, but lately what's been happening is it's been squashed even more so. And what we want to do is establish this local democracy. I mean, the problem that you're having is a problem of absence of democracy. So
that's it exactly.
If your communities don't have the right to vote on amendments and laws, to protect themselves from harmful things, if you don't have those rights, then you don't have a democracy.
That is correct. Yeah.
Because
there's nobody in their right mind that would want to play host in their community to an industrial toxic waste dump or an activity that would constantly pollute the air that you have to breathe.
Right.
Such as what you're experiencing.
Yes. So one of the roles that we have for the National Community Rights Network is to all get together and share our experiences and our ideas and unify as a national movement so that we can help each other pass these amendments, get this petitioning done, get the laws on the books, which basically legalize democracy where we live. And then what's going to happen is that's going to upset the federal government quite a lot, because they want to be the central government. They want to call all the shots, ultimately.
Yes.
And they're going to come after us all. And then we're going to want to stir things up and amend the federal Constitution so that it will give the right to local community self-government. So
it's an uphill climb, and you're heroic for doing it.
Well, any change always has to come from the grassroots. Any achievement in terms of granting greater rights to minorities of people or just people, it's always come from the grassroots up. So we can't expect some big nonprofit organization from up above to come down and help us and achieve this on our own. And we certainly can't expect our elected federal and state representatives to do this for us. It's going to have to come from us. So no politician is going to be able to pull this off. We all have to understand the need for democracy as the way of moving forward and the way of saving the environment, the way of legalizing sustainability. Because what's happening to your community, what they want to do is something that's not sustainable. What are you going to do? How are they going to know when they put enough poison in your ground? It's going
they'll follow
up and poisoning your environment and the people and animals where you live.
Yep.
That's not sustainable. And what the government is telling you is it's illegal for you to ban that. It's illegal for you to have sustainability.
It's permitted poisoning.
Yeah. So, so let's all work together, and everyone listening to this, if you can contact your nearest community rights organization, and if you need help, you can go to the National Community Rights Network.org website. And Stacy, for people around Grant Township, they can get a hold of you, right?
Yes, absolutely. You have to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
We need more. We need action. We need less. Yeah. So stop listening and pick up a phone or email somebody right now.
Yeah. So do you have a way that you like for people to contact you?
Yes. Email is always great. Do you want me to leave you with an email address?
Yeah. Why don't you give it to us now, and then I'll also post it on the screen.
Yes. I have a Gmail account. It is lemonphone, all one word, no underscores or spaces, 28 @gmail.com.
Great. And yeah, so if anyone wants to get involved in helping the Grant Township, Pennsylvania people defend their local community bill of rights, that's Stacy's the person to talk to. And
yes, and you know you want to.
Yep. Yep. And I understand you're pulling together something called the Democracy School, and you'd like to put something on there, have that Democracy School put on there in your town. So that would be something also to speak with Stacy about, because I've taken
yes.
details.
Yep, yeah. Details are forthcoming.
Yeah. And do you all have a website or anything like that?
You may go to the East Run Hellbenders Society.org website. It is yes, it is newly launched. Again, the East Run Hellbenders are the community group in Grant Township, and they also have a Facebook presence.
On Facebook.
And yes, please go there, throw us a like, read about the nastiness of Pennsylvania injection wells.
Yes, and find out about the people who've done something for the first time ever in this country. Yeah.
My gracious.
Legalized direct action. So congratulations, and it's been really great talking to you, Stacy.
Oh, as warm thanks for having me.
Thanks.